The core of Kokate events has always been guest experience, and I don't think it's really possible to talk about much without talking about what guest experience is and why it's critical for us here. I'm AJ, head planner of Kokate events,
And I'm Elizabeth, head designer of Kokate
and
events.
welcome to episode 2, guest experience, primarily before a wedding on events and Koka-Lattes.
So, guest experience really starts from the very beginning. It's something that we always start our consultations with in the kickoff meeting. So,
I think if we want to talk about guest experience, though, we kind of have to start at what guest experience is
sure,
and
how
what
would you
that
define it?
means. In my understanding, guest experience is more so about the aspects that a guest goes through in regards to their senses, the smell, the touch, the vision, the see, and their overall emotions that they feel from the every single aspect of executing a wedding.
I would agree with that. So, let's break down the different components. Maybe let's start at the very beginning when the couple first comes to us. What do you talk about in the kickoff meeting to start thinking about the guest
Mhm.
experience?
I love telling couples that while the wedding is about them, the biggest impact you can have on making it memorable and having people go, wow, it's an amazing wedding, is by how the guests are feeling afterwards. It's about the emotions they felt, the adjectives that they have when they talk about the wedding. Those are the memories that really, really carry on. We like to say that as much as we love aesthetics, and we do so much in regards to aesthetics,
Hmm.
it's always about balancing it and making sure that it is still fulfilling and not hindering the overall guest experience. The what they're seeing, how they're feeling, what their emotions are going to be, that really is key.
I mean, a wedding's about the couple, but also about their guests too, right? It's a celebration of the couple with their closest friends and family.
Hmm.
It's everybody coming together to celebrate them. So, one way to make that lasting impact is to get that crowd of supporters, those cheerleaders that the couple is bringing
Hmm.
into their day, make them be super happy, super memorable. So they're like, "Oh my gosh, your wedding was amazing!" Like so many years later, that impact's really important to us.
It really is. I don't really know how else you could have a memorable wedding. I mean, we've been to events, and I mean, we've been to so many weddings at this point, right? We've attended weddings where it's been purely about aesthetic, getting that Instagrammable moment, and that's been something that's been very hot
Hmm.
in the last 10 years. It just hasn't been something that's been at our core because, in our experience, we feel that we haven't enjoyed ourselves as much in those weddings at the end of the day.
Right.
We left going, wow, I got a great photo, but man,
You were just a spectator at that point. You weren't
exactly.
super involved, like very picture perfect curated,
Hmm.
but there wasn't that kind of moment of
Hmm.
connection that guests are looking for.
Exactly.
So, what are some things that you would advise couples to think about when they're starting to navigate what their wedding could look like?
Honestly, it kind of starts from the beginning,
Hmm.
right? And that's what we're here to talk about. The first impact that any guest has about your wedding is that first piece of information they get on whether or not you're on your marriage.
Starting them early.
So whether it's a save the date or an invite, that usually is the case here, and it's that the impact is you're automatically setting the tone. You're automatically saying this is how it's going to go. This is what the vibe's going to be. This is exactly what to expect
Hmm.
going off. So you have to make sure that even your save the dates or invites are very calculated, very critically key, even on a planning perspective, to make sure that it's fulfilling all the necessary requirements to make that guest
Hmm.
understand what they need to do.
Okay, let's stay on the topic of save the dates for a second. What content would you
Hmm.
include on that save the date?
I've always been of the strong opinion that if you are having a wedding website,
Hmm.
a save the date and an invite should have the least amount of information possible.
Okay, explain.
Because the more information you put in there, the less you can never change in the future.
Yes, once you
um,
get it in writing, it's hard to
it is
reverse.
hard to reverse that. Um, wedding websites, those can be altered, those can be changed. You can always add information, but it's really hard to do that in something that's officially published and documented. So for save the dates, I like to tell couples, tell your name,
Mhm.
tell what city you're getting married in, and what day you're getting married. That's it.
That's it?
That's it. I
Okay.
don't even, I usually don't even get into times or anything like that because whether, honestly, guests are setting aside an entire day anyway for a wedding. If whether you're starting at 11 a.m. or starting at 6 p.m., whether or not a guest can attend is probably more likely than not is already going to be known just from that day
Yeah.
and location.
Yeah. And from a design perspective, the save the date, as you said, is really what sets the tone. So, as you're thinking about your save the dates and designing those, it's really important to think about not only color palette, because that'll play in and it's something
Mm-hmm.
that carries through to the wedding day, but also what type of, I'll just call it generically like art style, like what kind of elements do you want on there? What kind
Mm-hmm.
of design motifs are you pulling in? Are you pulling more bohemian? Are you pulling more
Mm-hmm.
art deco? Because all of those art styles, even interior design or architectural styles, will evoke a certain
Mm-hmm.
mood, a certain time period, and give guests really almost more of a subconscious, um, what's the word I'm looking for? A subconscious impression of what the wedding is going to be like and what they're in store for.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why we spend so much time on our kickoff meetings just talking about vision, color palettes, style, design. I mean, I remember we were having a meeting where one couple was like, I'm not a huge fan of gold. And then on their invite, they were wanting to make everything gold. And I'm like, why?
It's in direct conflict with
Um,
what they
hmm
said. So,
so think about the kind of expectation, what you're setting there, and whether you want to or not. So yeah, I definitely agree from a design perspective that I should do that. We actually don't do many save the dates. Interestingly
no.
enough, only about 20% of our couples do save the dates, but I think it's because of how our process is a little bit different. Most couples we found do save the dates because they're
Mhm.
sending, in general, save the dates are sent out about 10 to 12 months in advance so that guests have some time to figure out travel, availability, all of that. We, interestingly enough, usually are planning with couples so early that we actually know the exact venue, we know the general timeline of the wedding and all of that 10 to 12 months in advance. So we just go directly into invites. Um,
That
we-
is true. We do our process a little differently. Let's tease that out a little bit. When someone's thinking about, do I send a save the date or do I go straight into an invite? What questions should someone be asking themselves to make that decision?
I like to say that if you have your venue figured out and you know exactly the start time of your wedding, that means when the guests are going to be arriving, whether it's 4:30 p.m. for a ceremony or whether it's 10 a.m. for a ceremony. Essentially, until you have all of your venue figured out, I would not send an invitation
Okay.
itself. Um, and I would go with the save the date if you don't have that figured out 10 to 12 months in advance. If
Mhm.
you do have your venue figured out, you probably have, you're pretty close to a timeline. I would spend those extra few couple weeks just finalizing that timeline with that venue, and then you can go straight to invitation.
Do you need to have everything, for example, of your decor figured out before
Mm-mm.
you send either of those?
You don't even have to have your wedding party figured out.
So, we've talked about save the dates and what content should be on there. What about invites?
So for invites, it's a little bit different. You do need a little bit more information. I do think that a venue has to be determined. In fact, if you have multiple venues in the same day, all of those venues have to be determined before even considering to send an invite. If you're doing any pre-wedding functions, such as rehearsal dinner or a post-wedding brunch, I do believe that those venues also have to be determined before sending an invite. You also need to know your date, your times as well. So when it says time, it does not need to be every single little detail, but you need to know your start time. So if there's a morning ceremony at 10 a.m. and you're having an evening ceremony at 6 p.m., you need to know that information. You don't need to know when your cake cutting is, your dancing is, your dinner, all that stuff, just your start time as a whole. And then you also need to know your dress code so that guests can start preparing in terms of outfit what they want to be wearing. But as soon as you have all of that information, you are ready to send an invitation.
So a wedding is more than just like a ceremony and a reception. What about the other events that happen outside, like a welcome party or an after
Mm-hmm.
party or even a post-wedding brunch? Like, what information of that gets onto
Mm-hmm.
the invite?
Even that for an invite, it's the same process. If you can say like, oh, actually, I mean, realistically, you don't have to have that information on the invite if you don't want to, if it's on wedding website itself, because the invite, the goal of it is to get you on the wedding website. That's the main goal that I always like to treat invites as. Now, the more traditional route where you have RSVPs built into the invite with the extra envelopes and that, then yes, you need to have a detail card that does have information about the pre-wedding function and post-wedding functions if you're having them. They used to have name, venue, time, date, start, dress code. That also needs to be there. However, if you are honestly just having people be on the wedding website, you don't have to have that information. You can just say additional details are on the website.
Okay. Thinking about invites from a design perspective, that really should be a more concrete look into what the mood and the aesthetic is and the
Mm-hmm.
overall vibe and the
Mm-hmm.
adjectives that the couple is looking to evoke in
Mm-hmm.
their wedding. So if they've already sent the save the dates, that invite should be a more elaborate growth. Same design, same color
Mm-hmm.
scheme, but just like solidified a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
because then you're keeping guests on that same trajectory of
Exactly.
what they should be looking for, what they're going to be experiencing, and
Mm-hmm.
such.
Yeah, if you're planning, if you have a venue that has a lot of greenery, you should incorporate some greenery into your invite. You know that really is.
Presumably, that's part of the color palette, right? You want
Mm-hmm.
your color palette to be cohesive with the
Mm-hmm.
venue, not to clash.
For sure. So there does come a point though where there is too much information on an invite.
Oh, yes. Guests don't need to know every little itty bitty detail about the hotel room block or about what, extra outfits. Like maybe you have multiple dress codes for all the events. It's a fine balance between giving guests enough information on the physical invite so they know to mark their calendars, they know what their next steps
Mm-hmm.
are, but not enough to overwhelm them. And the wedding website is a great extension of the guest experience where it's their one stop shop for everything else, any other possible
Mm-hmm.
question they could have for the
Mm-hmm.
wedding. And from a design perspective, you can really echo that same design language there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, reiterating the same colors, the same mood, the same vibe. So
Mm-hmm.
guests are already getting hyped up and excited and they know what they're looking forward to.
I like to almost joke sometimes that no one likes reading anymore.
True.
So if we put a lot of words on an invite, no one's reading it. And unless you're planning on sending a picture book to everyone, um, keep that
Okay.
information for the wedding website.
Yes, that's a good rule of thumb.
Hmm. I like to say that wedding websites are honestly more important than ever in planning a wedding and letting guests know what to expect and relieving them of any questions and stress that they may have.
Mhm. The goal of a website should be for your guests to have almost like a dictionary of, or an encyclopedia really is a better analogy of
Hmm.
everything that they could possibly have questions on or need to know before the event. One of the goals of a wedding website is to minimize the questions to the couple itself. You really want to enable your guests to be self-service to find the information that they need. So anything from reiterating the wedding details, any other pre and post events that you have,
Hmm.
the dress code or multiple dress codes depending on the event. It's becoming super popular now to have different themed events leading up to
Oh,
the
yes.
wedding. Yes. And then a website is also great to even inject a little bit of fun, give your guests a peek into who your wedding
Hmm.
party is, who you are, bring them into your story.
Yeah, I mean, we have a guest who, we have a couple who who has a wedding party, and we have caricatures of their bunnies because they want, because their bunnies are part of their wedding, and so it's so fun on the website how they
Mm.
have them as part of their wedding party and stuff, and it just brings that element of fun and lets you know just who they are as a couple as well.
Yes. We have another couple that's hidden like hot dogs throughout their website, which was so fun to think of where to hide them, almost like the hidden Mickeys, that
Mhm.
Disney does. How do we incorporate hot dogs in the most random places for people to
Yes.
find? So you can really inject your personality. It's not just like static text, static
Mhm.
images. You
Mhm.
can also flip it and be like, how can I be a little different with my
Mhm.
website?
And you might be like, oh, how does injecting a bunch of hot dogs provide a good guest experience? Honestly, I go anywhere and I see a hot dog, I think of them. I saw a hot dog speaker the other day at Target and I was sent them a photo being like, hey, I thought you guys might like this.
Yeah.
Um, just things like that that you just wouldn't think or expect, but really does make an impact for the guest and really sets that tone. Honestly, if
Mhm.
they don't have hot dogs in that wedding now, I will be disappointed. They do.
Good.
Um,
Good.
but no, it's also key to also provide a lot of travel details, especially for out of town guests too. So making sure you have their hotel room blocks figured out, where they're going, what transportation there is, what like you said, dress code, registry information, and RSVP. Any information you need from that couple, whether you need the plate names, who's attending, um, any dietary restrictions, all of that is information that you need to be collecting from them, and having all of that on the website is really key.
Mhm. I will say personally, I'm very glad that RSVPs are now digital most days because
Hmm.
it's so easy to go back through and fill out and even get some more information from the guests.
Hmm.
I mean, unless you really like manual data entry, those physical RSVPs are going to create more work for you down
Hmm.
the road.
It really does, and that's assuming it doesn't get lost in the mail.
Very true. Very true.
You know, but there's a lot of different ways that you can have the wedding website too. So even from a design perspective, I'm sure you're having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, the experience of, for example, having one long page you scroll versus having places where you can almost have like a landing page and then you can kind of click off into different
Mhm,
branches. It gives a different experience. It depends on like if the couple just wants like kind of a data dump, everything
mhm,
in one place, or if it makes more sense to have almost like curated landing pages
mhm,
for all the different kinds of information that you need. Maybe you'd have a separate travel section, separate, outfit section. Nowadays, you can even incorporate like Pinterest boards and embed them
mhm.
into websites, which is pretty cool.
They're so helpful. A lot of guests love having direction, and that
Yes.
you'd be surprised where putting that structure in place actually makes it better for guests
Hmm.
because then they have less questions.
For sure.
So tell me, I mean, we design a lot of websites. I mean,
Hmm.
we do that a lot.
Hmm.
You work directly with the couple on making sure that it's designed
Hmm.
and fitting the aesthetic and palette and extension of the save the dates or invites
Hmm.
into what their wedding is going to be like.
Hmm.
It is. There's a lot of options out there though for where to host your website.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of the popular ones are Zola and the Knot. There's a few others that have come about.
Hmm.
We do things a little bit differently though.
Yes, with our couples, we give them the option of hosting their website with us. We create a secure page that can be password protected
Hmm.
for their guests. And we do this so that we can also help keep everything in one place, make sure that our information is consistent with the guests. We can even field questions as well from guests and take that burden off of our couples. And then lastly, which I think is pretty cool, is we can even handle the RSVP tracking as
Hmm.
well, take that off the couples' plates really. And collate it into a really nice spreadsheet so it's
Hmm.
easy for them to see who's responded, who's not, and then be able to digitally and automatically follow up with those folks who are, without a doubt, there's always a straggler forgetting to submit their RSVP on time. So
Hmm.
having those automated reminders is another benefit
It
to
is.
having those
For
RSVPs
sure. Yeah,
digital.
no. We do that, and that way we're able to track the, yeah, and we also protect the information that couples are providing. Something that people don't think about is you are a guest is giving their name, their email, their phone number, their kid's name if there's kids,
It's quite a
their
bit of
partner's
data
name. That's a lot of data,
for
and
some.
when you give them to companies, you never know what's going to happen with it, right? We are pretty happy with the security that we've put around it and where all that data is being securely collected and never being used. I mean, we don't really see it, any of that kind of stuff. We
Mhm.
never solicit it or anything like that either. And it's just a way to just protect the data that our couples and their guests are having. But yeah, we also have a lot of fun. We're able to design it out. We're not fixed to templates like a lot of websites. We really can
Mhm.
customize it out to what the couple wants.
Yes.
We have a couple of restrictions that we always tell our couples that we've always had where we always have like one of our footers there. That just is something that we're just not able to figure out. But it's something where we have not had a couple yet, actually, in the last year or two that has not had an issue with it. They've all been very happy with it. We make sure it's very clear up front. And so far, I mean, our couples have been really happy with the websites that we've designed. Um, but no, you can definitely do it from other places too, whether it's Nod or Zola. Just know where your data is going and your options on tempo wise. And if it's fitting your aesthetic and it's doing all of that, then it may be the right fit for you.
Yeah, it really depends on what the couple's needs
Hmm.
are, how extensive do they want to be in that
Hmm.
design process as well. But ask your planner. Some planners do host websites as well. We are one of those. See who's the best fit to host your wedding website. Maybe it's your planner, maybe it's someone else. So, what about out of town guests? What should couples be thinking about there in terms of their guest experience?
Honestly, they kind of need a little bit more care and a little bit more attention and communication
Mm,
in order to make sure that they're able to effectively have a smoother process. Knowing, one, you have to provide them with a hotel room block option. I know there are couples out there who say they don't want to do any hotel room blocks, but I feel that if you have a wedding over a certain guest count, usually about 100, I always recommend having a hotel room block available, even if it's not being utilized much. Um, just because of the fact that I think that that guests would like that direction and like to know, at least if there's not a hotel room block, what area they should be booking around. And
yeah.
if you have last minute stragglers, you just don't know if they're going to be able to get it for the same rate or if there's any issues or something like that. And sometimes things happen, and it's just good to have a hotel room block for sure.
I'd actually say a hotel room block is actually the preferable method because out of towners have a lot of logistics that they're thinking through.
They do.
It's not only like what airport are they flying into, what kind of transport do they need to book themselves versus what the couple's
Hmm.
providing. A hotel room block, I do like that you pointed out, it gives couples like an area of where they can stay or where they should
Hmm.
be staying. But if that can be promoted and like made popular with your out of town guests, then it actually makes your wedding logistics a bit smoother
Hmm.
because you can think about then shuttle transportation. You can see you have other options, really, is what I'm getting at
Hmm.
for transport or other options to make their guest experience that much better.
And sometimes, depending on the hotel you work with, that experience can go even further than you think. I mean, there are instances where a hotel will just block out an entire floor for just wedding guests, and you have all these wedding guests that know each other or are about to meet each other, all just staying on one floor. It's an awesome feeling, and you just never know when those connections are going to be.
Mhm. Think about it if you ever went on those school trips
Hmm.
where you're there with your classmates. It ends up being that kind of fun experience again when everybody can stay in a similar area, similar hotel, and just hang out together in between all of the events that you've
Hmm.
planned.
And that, I think, plays a key part into transportation as a whole too.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Transportation starts actually from one, also letting people know what the transportation options are from the airport, whether they should be Ubering, whether there's a train option, whether there's a cab option, whether they should rent a car because it's in the middle of nowhere and no cab's going to go there, whether you need to ferry and take a ship, which all things that we've had to figure out logistically, and we always make sure that um, we put that on the wedding website. That way, guests have one less logistic to figure out.
Yeah. They have an idea of what to expect when they land
Hmm.
and an expectation of how
Hmm.
they can get around
Hmm.
themselves.
And then it's also good to inform them of how the logistics are going to be in terms of transportation, if it's going to be there or not on the actual wedding day. Should they be expecting to have to train somewhere? Should they be expecting to get a party bus or something that's going to be picking them up from a specific hotel? I mean, we did a wedding where they were like, there's limited parking in this venue because it was a beautiful vineyard. And they were like, we want all the guests to arrive at this hotel. Whether you are staying in that hotel or not, we want everyone to stay parked there. We got approval from the hotel, and all these shuttles are just going to take everyone to the vineyard. And that's logistic. It makes their life easier in having to figure out as well.
Mhm. So, should couples consider having a welcome bag for those out of towners?
I think it depends on what the welcome bag is.
Okay. Explain.
I like to say, when it comes to welcome bags, wedding favors, anything you give as a gift to the guest, if it's a simple, cheap tchotchke, don't spend your time and your money on it. The guest is just going to throw it away anyway. As If it's something that's meaningful that you think they're actually going to use, going to keep, going to consume, maybe think about it and see if it might actually end up being a good um, welcome thing for them. We have done weddings where they've had a welcome bag and it had like candy in there, and it was their favorite candies. It was taking place in a venue which is just known for just being very whimsical and fun, and it made sense to have that because it was part of the experience. We've done weddings where there's been a guest bag where they had personalized water bottles for everyone, and that's awesome. Like, they did that. I'm sure the guests are going to use it in the future. It's something that's meaningful. But then if you're just making the welcome bag be like a bottle of water and the hotel's giving you a bottle of water anyway to every guest, why are you spending the money and the time on that? Like, is it really worth it? Is it adding to the experience? Is it providing that? So it really varies. But a lot of couples nowadays have not been going into the welcome bag as much unless it's at a certain price point and they just have that extra money to spend on that. But I do feel it is one of the first thing that does get cut when there is not the budget for it.
Mm. I do want to reiterate and focus on that any welcome gift or even like wedding favor for that matter, think about how A, to make it something that people will use again and again, or maybe even how do they use it in a different way.
Hmm.
I'm really enjoying the couples that are using like seedlings or flowers or
Hmm.
something that will bring the guests joy even after the wedding as something to give and provide to them.
I mean, remember we went to the wedding, your friend's wedding on the beach, and they had seashells that they gave everyone with their name on it. Like, it
Yes,
made sense.
it's sea glass. I remember that.
And
That
that's
was
fun.
beautiful.
That's a great way to do it, and it really adds on to the experience. We still have those.
Hmm.
It's very small, very easy. It's not hard to carry around or take with us. And we took it home, and it's a wonderful experience there.
Circling back to hotel room blocks, we typically reserve a secondary room block for our couples and advise that they think about doing that as well.
Mhm.
Explain our
So,
rationale.
depending on number of guests, if they only need one hotel room block, we actually book a second one. If they have two hotel room blocks, we book a third one. It's something we've actually started doing this year. It's been relatively new. The main reason for that is actually because we've had instances, and luckily it we were prepared. We had a couple that had two hotel room blocks, but then a concert got declared on their wedding day weekend,
Mhm.
a very big one. So you can imagine what that must have done for the hotel room rates that were not under the hotel room block. So luckily, we had some great relationships with another nearby hotel who was willing to honor a rate that was reasonable instead of the insanely high rates that everyone else was charging. But it gave us a great lesson into we should just start doing that in general. So we actually had we actually have had another couple recently that had a concert declared on their wedding day, and we already have an extra room block, so we're covered, we're safe. Um, Hotel rates for that night are now about 3 to 4 times higher of what they were before, so that couple is still happy knowing that they have that backup, that they're good, and that they don't have to worry about the hotel room rates being too high. Now, that being said, definitely make sure that the attrition rate on those hotel room on the second one that we do is always like as close to 0% as possible. So, um, just in case you don't need it, you don't have to use it. And hotels give you a date you have to book rooms there by. If you don't, that's perfectly fine too. And just in case people don't know what an attrition rate is the percentage of rooms that have to be booked. So if you are like, hey, I want a hotel room block for 20 rooms, and it has a 50% attrition, that means that no matter what, 10 of the rooms have to be booked. If they are not booked, like let's say 8 are, whoever signed the contract is responsible for paying for that 2 room difference, whether or not they're being used.
Mm. That's
Hmm.
good to know for couples as they're planning
Hmm.
what amount of rooms they need to reserve for
Hmm.
their guests.
For sure. Um, but that's a great way of just thinking about hotel room blocks. Another aspect that a lot of people think wouldn't be relevant, but is actually local transportation for local guests. People are like, I only need to have transportation if I have a lot of out of towners. Like, I don't need to worry about it. Local guests also love public transportation, especially if it mean, especially in areas like downtowns where they have to figure out parking and those logistics. Being here in Chicago, figuring out those parking garages and paying those rates for those parking garages is not always worth it.
I do want to clarify what you mean when you just said public transportation is provided transportation
Hmm.
by the couple.
Hmm.
It's, as you said, it's one less thing that the guests need to think about. It gives them peace of mind that they know that they're going to be taken care of from point A to point B and the reverse. And it's one less thing. In Chicago, parking rates downtown are crazy. So having that provided transportation
Hmm.
alleviates that cost of attending the wedding for guests.
Yeah, or if there's not enough parking at the venue,
Yeah.
just things you have to think about. Guests are usually fine with having transportation provided for them, even if they're local, if you make that experience good, if you pre-prepare them for it and take those necessary steps.
You can even look at kind of unique transportation options. There are several companies that provide trolley-esque buses.
Hmm.
It gives a different atmosphere to your wedding. So even look around, there might be some creative options that can really fit the aesthetic and the mood of your wedding. That isn't just your standard like school bus, for lack of a better term, or
Hmm.
like those big coach buses. There's some really cool options these days.
There really are. There's so many fun things. So another thing that you can also do just to be a little bit different and also elevate it is also just on invites. Put a magnet on the back so they can put it on the fridge. I mean,
Yes.
it's so simple, so easy to do. There's a variety of different magnet colors and designs and sizes and shapes. You can get some for very, very reasonable prices nowadays. Because then that guest is going to put that invite on the fridge. And guess what that is? Another reminder for them. On top of the digital reminders, other reminders. You can never remind a guest enough about a wedding.
No. That's why even putting the wedding website front and center, even on those invites, is
Mhm.
super important because that way it's very convenient for the guests to refer back and visit that website
Mhm.
over and over and over again. Because undoubtedly, some information is going to be forgotten from when they receive the invite to the wedding
Mhm.
day.
And even if there is information on the website, we have instances many a times where guests will ask a question. They'll be like, "Hey, can you explain the dress code?" And there will be a Pinterest board link on that wedding website. That's okay. It doesn't mean that you messed up on the design, that you didn't weren't providing enough a good of a guest experience. Sometimes that just is how it is, and sometimes things get missed. So just because you have people asking you questions sometimes, um, or like once, doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad that you've messed up somehow. If you see a question being asked consistently, then maybe look into why that's happening. But definitely it's okay if there are people asking questions.
And if your planner is hosting your website like we do for our couples, those choose to host it with us, those are questions that we can easily field as well. So having visibility into what questions are being asked of the couples or what people are confused about also helps us be able to field that and take that stress off from
Hmm.
clients.
And then there's even other aspects that we love focusing on. So we have our entire manufacturing and artisan collection that we do. Um, One of the favorite, actually, wedding favors or hotel and welcome bag favors that couples have gotten has actually been the custom soap.
Oh yeah.
So we work with a wonderful couple in St. Charles, Missouri, Providence Soap Works. And what we do with them is we actually get a lot of custom soap from them. So we even have them as our business cards and that. And as a
We have
hotel.
the soaps as our business cards.
Yes, we do have the soaps as our business cards. And one thing that I remember we did a wedding where a lot of the guests, every single guest at the hotel got a bar of soap with the couple's name on it. And it makes sense. They're in a hotel. They're going to need soap. So,
They're going to be showering in the hotel.
yes, for sure. So it was just really nice and it's a fun experience and it was something that was useful for them. So just something that can really elevate and provide a good experience that people wouldn't think about.
Mhm. Yeah, you can always get really creative with as we've said before, you can get really creative with the welcome gifts or even the wedding favors, depending on what's important to you.
Mhm,
We've even seen some people do custom tea blends because the couple
mhm,
was really into teas. That was their drink of
mhm,
choice, and so we were able to create a unique blend with local kind of tea
mhm,
shops and provide that in cute little packaging for guests. So it's something that they can take to remind them of the fun that they've had. Smell and taste is such an important part of memory.
it
So
really
when
is.
you can incorporate that and have it repeated
Mhm,
again and again, will just continue that guest experience even
mhm.
after the wedding.
Yeah, that's why we've even sometimes put like smelling stickers in invites that people wouldn't notice, but then it's like they open the invite, they're like, "Ooh, this envelope, why does it smell good?" Even after all the transportation, because it matters. It makes an impact.
I mean, Elle Woods was onto something when she spritzed her resume with perfume.
Honestly, she was. The best guest experience starts way before an actual wedding. It starts from the moment that they receive their save the date or an invitation and continues on with all of the communication that you give them leading up to your wedding. In order to have the best experience for guests, you have to think about what happens before you actually are getting married. I'm AJ, head planner of Kokate events.
And I'm Elizabeth, head designer at Kokate Events.
And I hope this episode was interesting and helpful for you as you learned about the guest experience all the way up to the transportation leading up to an actual wedding itself. If
And
you,
and the favors, don't forget at the end, you need to
and the,
continue that guest experience.
for sure. Um, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. And please show it off to anyone that you feel this would be helpful for, whether it's another couple that's looking to get married or someone in the event industry who just wants to know how to provide the best experience for couples and just improve the industry as a whole. I hope you had fun, and we'll catch you on the next one.